Hello, I'm Anthony David Hobbs, and this is going to be my review of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Now, Star Wars is always part of our culture. It's everywhere, every few years it's invented in a new way, new different versions, so there's something for everyone, every different kind of Star Wars. This is something I had as a child, yes, it's in French, but it's English when you play the game. A little computer game about The Empire Strikes Back, yeah. And one of the more memorable scenes is the battle in the snow, yeah. However, I'm a big Star Wars fan now, but wasn't always the case, no. I remember when I was 8 years old, I'd seen the original Star Wars film several times, once a year on television, and then I remember seeing an advert on TV, it was like Christmas time when I was 8, and it was for a sequel to Star Wars. I was blissfully unaware there were any sequels to Star Wars. And when I saw the advert, I thought, no way, we are not having this. How dare they do a sequel to Star Wars? It's going to be awful, isn't it? It's going to be terrible, Star Wars was so perfect, Why would you want to make a sequel to something that's so perfect? There's nowhere to go, and nothing more for the characters to do. All the best bits were in that one film, Star Wars. So it's insulting, for such a perfect film to have any sequels done. So no, I'm not interested, no. It's definitely going to be awful. And that's the same attitude a lot of people have when there's a sequel to a blockbuster film, but not always the case. Sometimes sequels can do very well. About, I think it was a year and a half later, one of my friends told me that Empire Strikes Back was really good. It is a brilliant film. You must see it, yeah. And also, I remember my best friend, he'd seen all 3 Star Wars films, and was like, how can you not have seen the sequels? They're so good. How can you not have seen them? Where have you been? You're really missing out if you don't see these films. And he said that that it's a Star Wars trilogy. You shouldn't think of it as one film. It's a trilogy. All 3 films connect together to make one big story. Yeah. So you don't know the whole story if you haven't seen the 2 sequels. Yeah. So okay, I took heed. Yes, Star Wars is a big deal, and I thought one day I'll see the 2 sequels. But there was no immediate rush. One day I'll do it. I just haven't got round to it. If by chance I see one on the telly, maybe I'll see it. There was no great rush to see the whole trilogy. Yeah. And then one day, so sometime later again, when I was 10, it was a few days after Christmas Day, and I saw, I think, about a quarter of an hour of Return of the Jedi on TV. I didn't see it properly all the way from the start. And my reaction was, wow, that's amazing. The most spectacular space battles I've ever seen. Yeah, that's incredible stuff. This is it. This is the stuff. This is the greatest adventure story ever, But of course, a bit annoyed that I only saw a quarter of an hour. I wanted to see the whole thing properly. And I thought, well, if you're going to see it properly, see the ones you haven't seen, yeah. Before then, when I was 10, the best space adventures were in the Star Trek films made in the 80s. And they are good, don't get me wrong, but not like this. This was way better. The space battles, the battling in space, much more fast-paced action, yes. It was cooler, had more style, yeah. Because a massive spaceship like the Star Trek Enterprise can only go quite slowly in a battle, whereas small one-man fighters can go in every direction, all over the place, here, there and everywhere. Yeah, it was much more cooler style of action, yeah. So, naturally enough, my best friend, I asked him, can I borrow The Empire Strikes Back? Which was videos back then. And here it is, the original video, the original poster on the front there, The Empire Strikes Back, yeah. I wanted to see the ones I hadn't seen. A bit silly, really. He had the whole trilogy. What I should have done was asked if I could see, Star Wars first, borrow that, then see Empire Strikes Back, then see Return of the Jedi. Because I hadn't seen the first Star Wars film for 3 years. And that's a very long time when you're a child, but I didn't think that far ahead yet. It would have made more sense to see them properly, all 3 again. Well, see the first one again, then see the sequels. Because, you see, I hadn't seen Star Wars for 3 years, and I could only really half remember it. I didn't know what the Force was. How can you not know what the Force is? Well, I couldn't remember 3 years ago, I didn't know what the Jedi were. No, I didn't know what they were. I remember those laser sword things. Yeah, I didn't know the proper name for them, but I remember that. And I remember the space battling and stuff. And I knew Obi-Wan Kenobi got killed in a sword fight, yeah. But lots of bits and bobs. I didn't remember the word droid. I didn't remember that from the original film, yeah. So, yes, And the first one helps you understand what's going on in this one better, you know. Nevertheless, when I saw this when I was 10, yes, I was very impressed. I thought it was really cool, you know. And, okay, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this review, yes. Perhaps the most obvious spoiler of all is Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. That's the big twist at the end. However, it wasn't much of a spoiler because, years ago when I was at a school previous to the one when I was 10, so when I was about 6 years old, a school bully told me that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father. But I didn't believe him. Because he lied a lot, and that sounded like the sort of thing he'd lie about. And I thought that that's pathetic. How stupid do you think I am? He can't possibly be his father. He's his deadly enemy. Well, that doesn't make any sense, you know. Yeah. Something else I already knew. I already knew that Luke Skywalker had his hand chopped off. That was a different boy who didn't tell me to be mean. It just sort of slipped out. He assumed I'd already seen the film. Yes, a lot of people assume we've already seen the films because they were so famous. Yes, everyone's seen them, you know, yeah. And anyway, in spite of what I've just said, I didn't know precisely when and where Luke gets his hand chopped off. So yes, there was that element there. And yes, even though I knew, it is a powerful scene when Luke reveals that he's his father. Yeah, because all this time Luke was told that Darth Vader killed his father. So I thought, okay, he's his father, but I was still unsatisfied, or dissatisfied. If he's his father, that doesn't make any sense at all. How can you kill your enemy when it's your father? You can't do that. No. How can he beat the enemy then? It can't be done. What can he do? Just walk away and do nothing? It doesn't make any sense. It creates all kinds of dilemmas. And if he is his father, why is he evil? Why doesn't he turn good if he wants his son to be friends with him? You know, it doesn't make sense at all, yeah. And something else. Another bit of dissatisfaction here. Even after I'd seen the Empire Strikes Back movie, and okay, the big twist at the end is Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father, I didn't believe it. I still didn't believe it. Even after seeing the actual film itself, I still didn't believe it. I thought, well, think about it. Darth Vader wants Luke to turn evil. And he will say anything to get him to turn evil. He will lie through the back of his teeth. Yeah, I thought he's lying. Yeah, he'll say whatever it takes to make him think it's okay to turn evil. Well, if you're still not satisfied, there is of course a sequel to this film, yes. And it is revealed properly. Is he Luke's father or not? Well, any questions, any loose ends are tied up in the third Star Wars film, yeah. And, well, the theme of severing of limbs comes up a lot in this story. Yes, Luke has his hand chopped off, the snow creature has its arm chopped off, yeah. And there's a bit when Luke hallucinates and sees a fake Darth Vader and slices the head off. Yes, the severing of limbs comes up quite a lot in this story. I think the reason for that is because in ancient mythology, if you do a saga in 3 parts, the middle part is meant to be the dark one, when the heroes are at their worst, when they're tested to the limit, yes. And things do get just about as bad as they possibly can get in this. So that's why there's the severing of limbs, characters at their worst. And here we have C-3PO. Poor C-3PO has his arms and legs blown off. So that's really dark. That's really awful. Yeah, poor C-3PO. I remember being quite shocked about that when I was a child, because he was my favourite of the Star Wars robots. And I thought, no, this can't happen. Yeah. So he has to be carried about in this little rucksack thing like that. Chewbacca carries him on a rucksack. So yes, I remember being quite relieved when finally he was repaired at the very end. Oh, that's really dark, yeah. For what is meant to be a family film, yeah. And C-3PO and R2-D2, the perfect comedy double act, but they're not actually together that long. No, they're separate for most of the story, yeah. Is the first variation of R2-D2 has a sensor scope that comes out of his head like that, yeah, because that's what happens in the film. But ultimately necessary for them to be separate, of course, because Luke Skywalker wants to be trained to be a Jedi Knight. So he doesn't join up with the people in the Millennium Falcon until much, much later, yeah, so that's why that is. And, okay, let's have a little look at the spaceships here. The Star Destroyer at the beginning, yeah. Sort of a rule in all the original Star Wars films. We always see the Star Destroyer at the beginning, yeah. And we also see a Super Star Destroyer. They don't actually call it a Super Star Destroyer, they just call it a Star Destroyer. No, that term came later in the third film, yeah. But this is a big deal because it's the command ship, yeah, its name in full is Super Star Destroyer Executor. And I suppose because the Death Star has been destroyed, we need some sort of equivalent, yeah. So a spaceship, well, the size of a city, yeah. And yes, Darth Vader is more evil in this one. He's absolutely horrendous, you know. So he force chokes any of his officers if they fail him, you know. He is, really more evil than he was in the first one, that nothing can stop him. He'll do whatever it takes to get what he wants, no matter how despicable, no matter how inhumane. Yes, he is a bad, bad man, yeah. But we do see his character develop, you know. We find out that it's not just about destroying planets like in the first one. No, he's genuinely serious about stopping the Jedi once and for all, because they're the only thing that can stop the Sith, yeah. And okay, back to the vehicles here. We have, well, something we haven't seen before. We'd had ground vehicles in the first Star Wars film, but we hadn't seen, a battle with ground vehicles. So here's a snowspeeder here, and the AT-AT Walker, which of course is, this isn't to scale, no, it's bigger than that, it's absolutely enormous. It's like a massive skyscraper on legs, yeah. And I suppose this was like the equivalent of the Death Star again, yeah, like the Death Star battle, you know, very small goodies fighting a massive, enormous enemy, yeah. And although they appear utterly indestructible at first, no, they do have a weakness. There is a small weakness to stop them, just like the Death Star had a small weakness, yeah, so that's that. And, okay, next we have a Rebel transport, yes, because they've, on the Hoth base, the snow base, there's no desert planets in this Star Wars film, yes. I hope you're listening, all those people that are going to make the new Star Wars films, there's no desert planet. It is possible to have a good Star Wars film without a desert planet. I'm sorry, I'm just fed up with all these Star Wars films. It's Tatooine, then Tatooine again, then Tatooine again, then another planet that's not Tatooine, but it's desert planet. You know, enough. It is physically possible to have a good Star Wars story without a desert planet. In this case, we have a snow planet, the planet of Hoth. Anyway, their rebel base is discovered, so procedure for that is evacuate. Evacuate as fast as possible if you find. Really, they evacuate before they're discovered, but in this case, they have been discovered, so yes. This is a rebel transport, carries as many people as possible, and leave immediately. Get everyone out of the base as fast as possible. Evacuate, yeah. And so the theme of being on the run. Yes, being on the run comes up a lot in this film, yes. This is the Millennium Falcon, which is a bit like a character in itself, really, yes. It's on the run throughout the entire film, yes. They're always moving. Because in the first film, the crew of the Millennium Falcon, attacked by a Star Destroyer, in the first film, attacked by a Star Destroyer, well, no problem, go faster than the speed of light, get away straight away. What do you do if the light speed doesn't work? Well, you're in a lot of trouble then, aren't you? Yes, and the Millennium Falcon has to find other ways to get away, yeah. What if your technology doesn't work? Yes, they're so dependent on the technology. Well, it goes wrong a number of times in this film. Yes, yes. Heroes tested to their limit, yeah. But the Millennium Falcon, in spite of all these things going wrong, manages to find hiding places. If you can't run, you can hide. So they hide inside an asteroid, yeah. And we find out just how good a pilot Han Solo is. Yes, he can dodge left and right the asteroid without being pulverized. He may not be the hero, but he is the best pilot, definitely, yeah. And, okay, next we have, here's a cloud car, which goes to Cloud City. Yeah, different design. We want to see new kinds of vehicles, yeah. The planet Bespin has no solid ground. It is effectively a whole gas giant. So necessary to live in floating cities. Here's Cloud City. When I was a kid, at first I thought the city was called Bespin. Then I found out, no. Bespin's the name of the planet. It's called Cloud City. That's rather a generic name, isn't it? You know, a city in the clouds and it's called Cloud City. No, give it a name. Don't just call it Cloud City. That's like calling a spaceship, Spaceship. You know, now give it a more distinctive name. But no, the Cloud City is called Cloud City, and that's it. It is impressive, yeah, fantastic place to be, but yeah, could have come up with a better name. And yes, we're in a totally different environment now. The snow planet, here's Han Solo and Princess Leia in their Hoth gear, yes, to keep warm. And we have the snow troopers here, yes, perfectly adapted to the cold, yeah. But much later on Cloud City we have stormtroopers. Here's stormtroopers, because it just wouldn't feel like an original Star Wars film without stormtroopers. So yes, ultimately necessary. They come up again halfway through the film, yeah. And here we have, that's one of the more memorable animals, a Tauntaun. Yes, here's Luke Skywalker riding a Tauntaun. And I think this is sort of symbolic in a way, because it's not made of metal, it's a living thing, a living animal, yeah. Because the rebels are a bit more organic than the Empire, yeah. They're not quite as detached from nature as the Empire is. Yeah, they're closer to nature, so they ride animals if they can. And the other reason they ride animals is because because they're on a much smaller budget. They don't have anything like as much money as the Empire, so ultimately necessary to use whatever's available, live on whatever resources you can. And the Tauntaun, yes, it was very sad when the Tauntaun, or Han Solo's one, dies of cold. So its stomach is cut open to keep Luke Skywalker warm. Oh my god, that's, again, pretty grim, very gritty for a family film, but ultimately necessary. Use whatever resources you can to survive. This determination to stay alive, yeah. And, yes, Han Solo does risk his life, risk dying of cold, to save Luke Skywalker. And that's why much later Luke wants to save him, because he was willing to do the same for me, risk his life for me, yeah. Okay, back to in their different clothes now, Han Solo and Princess Leia. Okay, nitpick time. At the age of 10, I didn't like that these two fell in love. Well, I thought it was a good idea that they got together, but I didn't like the way they fell in love. Han Solo is so mean to her. Always at her throat, always being overcritical. He criticises absolutely everything she says and does. He's so mean and horrible. And vice versa. She's really mean to him. They're bickering and arguing about everything, you know. I found out later there's a reason for this. It's a free-act thing, right? Man and a woman, free acts. They can't stand each other, always arguing, always mean to each other. The second act is they finally start being nice to each other. And the third part is they fall in love. Okay, so be mean and horrible, start being nice, then fall in love. So Han and Leia, they're mean and horrible to each other, then fall in love. What? No, you missed a bit out there. You're supposed to be nice to each other first, then fall in love. That's a bit soon, isn't it? You know. I mean, I know we need to keep the story moving, but yeah, that was a bit soon. They fell in love straight, yeah. Well, they forgive each other for all the horrible things they've done to each other very, very quickly, and then fall in love. Oh, right, okay. Well, so it could have been done a bit better. The way they fell in love could have been executed a bit better. And the last thing she says to him when she thinks he's going to die is, I love you. Could have been a bit nicer to me, you know, that would have been a bit more preferable, but yeah, I still love you in spite of your flaws, yeah. Han Solo is very different to Luke Skywalker, very cynical and bitter, but he does the right thing. Deep down inside, he's a good guy. He does, yeah, risk his life and everything to save his comrades and all that, so yeah, just the way they fell in love could have been done a little bit better, yeah. And, okay, we have new characters in a new film. Here's Yoda. And I had no idea what Yoda looked like. You know, I didn't know anything about him, just that he's meant to be a more overwhelming Jedi than Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, yeah. He's a bigger badass, if you like. You know, he can train people to be a Jedi better than anyone else. Yeah, so tough guy, basically. I thought he'd be this huge, big, strong bloke. Nope, he's tiny. Well, I think one of the smallest Star Wars figures they did in the original line, yeah. But then that's kind of the point. Don't judge him by his size. Don't judge people on first appearances. And when we first meet Yoda, he behaves like a bumbling simpleton, or almost like an awkward child, you know. But then afterwards you realise he's doing it on purpose. He's testing Luke's patience. Patience is very important if you want to become a Jedi, yeah. He never reveals that he is Yoda. No, Luke has to work it out. And when he works it out, Luke says, well, I am ready. I'm ready to be a Jedi now. Oh, you are you? I think you'll find I know what I'm talking about. I'm Yoda. I've been training Jedi for 800 years. And but the thing is, who should Yoda train to be a Jedi? Who do you suggest? There's no other applicants for this position. A Jedi is the only thing that can destroy the Sith. I would have thought Yoda would leap at the chance to train the first person that wants to be a Jedi. But Yoda is very particular. Yes, he won't just train anyone, only if you've got what it takes. So he just says to Luke, very plainly, well, are you sincere? Do you have the deepest commitment, the most serious mind? Do you have any idea what you're dealing with here? If you become a Jedi, you've got to fight the most evil, most terrible, horrendous baddies in the universe. Do you have what it takes? Do you fear nothing? You know, yeah. So Yoda always tells it how it is. Yes, he doesn't say what you want to hear. He says the absolute truth. And when Luke wants to go and help his friends, Han and Leia, Yoda says, no, you're not ready. You need more training. You can't possibly beat Vader. You could beat him with more training, a fully trained Jedi Knight, but no, you don't have what it takes. You're not ready. So he doesn't lie, he says it how it is, yeah. But Luke says, no, they're my friends, I've got to help them. Han and Leia are in danger, must save Han and Leia. No mention of C-3PO or Chewbacca there. No, he just says Han and Leia got to save them, yeah. Okay, so new characters again. Here we have, well, Boba Fett, who is a good character. It's just at no point is he called Boba Fett in this film. He's always just referred to as Bounty Hunter, which is a little annoying. But you know who he was if you'd read the Star Wars comics or if you'd seen the Star Wars Holiday Special. But if you'd never heard of him before like me, you wouldn't know who he is. And George Lucas described Boba Fett's armour as like a Swiss Army knife. Lots of gadgets and gizmos to get him out of any trouble. We don't see any of his gadgets and gizmos in the film. Okay, there was a legal, practical reason why they couldn't use the rocket launcher. But all these other gadgets and gizmos he has, why don't we see any of them in action? No. He fires his blaster rifle about 2 or 3 times, and that's it. Other than that, we see none of his weapons in action. That's really rather sad, considering how hyped this character was. And he has so little dialogue, He has more dialogue in the Star Wars cartoon, Holiday Special, yeah. That's really rather sad, considering how hyped he was. But he is integral to the plot, yes. I mean, the whole thing, the story is about being on the run. He's the reason Han Solo and his friends got captured in the first place. So in spite of how little screen time he has, he is important. He's one of 6 bounty hunters that were given this job, and he's the one that succeeded, yeah. We do see Boba Fett's famous spaceship, Slave One, yeah. But again, this is meant to have lots of gadgets and gizmos. We don't see any of them in action. Attack of the Clones was a bad film, but we do at least see, yes, it has like the laser beams, it has like it drops bombs, and it has a heat-seeking missile. We see all its gadgets in action in Star Wars Episode 2. This one, we see it land for a while, and then we see it do this thing where, yeah, it lands like that, and then turns the other way around and flies like that. That's quite a novel twist, the fact that he has to turn around to fly. But it has so little screen time, yeah. So I know it's quite a long film, but they could have added just a few more minutes of screen time for the spaceship, yeah. And of course, the other distinctive new character is Lando Calrissian, yeah. Here's some of his people. He has security guards here, yeah. And like his personal bodyguard, the android here called Lobot, yeah. And well, for me, Lando Calrissian, yes, he was a friend of Han Solo, so Han Solo thinks he'll be safe there. And yes, he's an interesting character, and he has a cloak. I thought that was really cool as a kid that any character has cloaks, yeah. Anyway, he's a good guy, and then afterwards betrays Han Solo. And I remember as a child being disappointed. I didn't like that he turned into a baddie. That was annoying, And then afterwards he turns good. So I thought, oh, well, that's good then. I was quite pleased about that. Because not all the characters are quite so one-dimensional, yes. Lando Calrissian is a bit more three-dimensional. He starts off as a goodie, turns a bit bad, and then turns good again. Because he's in a dilemma here, He's like another side of Han Solo. What would Han Solo be like if he was a bit more serious and responsible? Well, he'd become a businessman and own Cloud City, yeah. And Lando Calrissian has to choose, either save your friend or give up this really thriving, successful business you've got here, and all those jobs it's created for all the people in the city. He has to give all that up. Is one friend so important he's worth giving all that up for? Well, he doesn't give it up straight away. After a time, he decides to, do the decent thing and help his new friends save Han Solo. So yes, yeah, he's an interesting character. He shows that the story isn't quite as simple. Oh, excuse me. But at the end, when Darth Vader here's an extended lightsaber like that, yes, we see just how powerful and just how mean he can be. And at the very end, he doesn't force choking. He doesn't force choke an admiral for failing him, because less is more, yes. He's just too fed up and too tired to take any revenge on anyone anymore, so he just quietly walks away, yeah. And here we have the medical frigate, yes, because at the end, yes, the Millennium Falcon has been on the run throughout the entire film, finally the light speed works. That's the climax of the film, and it gets away. Yeah. So at the end, you have this great feeling of getting away. They're in a medical frigate. They're finally safe. And Luke Skywalker needs an artificial hand put on. And by here we have the medical droid 21B that fixes his hand. Yeah. So what do I think of Empire Strikes Back overall? Well, it's dark, very gritty compared to what we're familiar with. Yeah. And yes, all the heroes are tested to their limits. Yes. Han Solo is far more cynical in this. He's cynical at the best of times, but he's really mean in this one. Yeah, but how badly do you want to be a Jedi? How badly do you want to escape capture from the Empire? Yes, if something's important enough, you'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. Yeah, and apparently it was very annoying for the people that saw the film when it was brand new because there's no ending. It's just silly. It's like a half-finished story. Yeah. It wasn't that annoying for me because, of course, I knew there was a sequel all along. Yeah, and so I think overall, very good film. It expands the characters, it expands the universe. We see new worlds, new situations, new problems happening we didn't see before. Yeah, and yes, I still think the first Star Wars film is better than that, but this is the next best thing. Yes, we see where we can go from here. In other words, Empire Strikes Back is a good example of how a sequel can be, you know, as good or almost as good as the original film. It can do the saga justice, yeah. Okay, that's enough from me, so thank you for watching. I'm Anthony Hobbs, and I'm never bored.